Hey everybody, David Nagel here. I'm getting ready to show you the most amazing law in the universe. Come on in and take a look. Welcome to the Successful Mind Podcast. This is part 2 of the idea that we can really program our mind based on how we choose. Again, I'm going to be using a whiteboard visual for this, so if you're listening to it at some point, you might want to flip over to our YouTube channel. There will be a link in the show notes below so that you could do that, and you can actually see the little demonstration that I'm doing around this idea. So I want to start this off with the idea that, so we talked about, we have the ability to choose. We have this amazing power. And I get questions all the time like, how do you stop doing this? Whatever this is. Like, people want to stop doing things, they want to start doing things, they want to stop thinking thoughts that they don't necessarily like, they want to break habits. And it's almost like we've overcomplicated our mind as far as a process goes to actually determine how to think about something. Because really, the intellect's ability to choose is the way to do it. You choose not to do something, or you choose to do something. And people will say, well, that's oversimplified, right? No, it really isn't. The problem is that when you're not consciously using that part of your intellect, it gets weak. And we choose in a reactive way. Or a defensive way, but not in a proactive way, where we're consciously making choices, even with things that might be difficult for us to stop doing or to let go of in our life. The key is that we have the ability to choose. So when I first started studying years ago, going back 30 years now, I was fascinated with this idea to some degree, like in the sense of, I saw that people obviously made different choices and were living different qualities of life. They were having very different experiences in the world, which really fascinated me. And part of what fascinated me was this underlying belief I must have had at the time, which was, well, how does a person actually know that they're going to succeed, or know that it's going to work, or know that it's not going to work, or know that they're making the right choice? Now, obviously, we can't know until we do something and then we see the result. I mean, even in the best of circumstances, we can make a mistake, or something else can interject into a choice that we've made and could make it go wrong or make it go right. But I was really perplexed with this thought. Now, I will tell you this. Underneath that thought is the idea of security, of this internal pressure or need for things to work out, and a fear of them not working out. So I could do a whole diatribe on that, and I've done podcasts on that idea also. but let me tell you a story that I think kind of helps fit in where I'm going with this. I was at a point where I had studied for a number of years, and I was kind of feeling the itch in my life to go do something different. I was working a job. I had a really good career that was working for me. I was making a lot of progress there, although there was an underlying feeling of not having the complete fulfillment that I wanted. I knew that I could do something different. I knew that I could do something more with my life, but I didn't know what it was. And I had a lot of limited thinking around what that could possibly be, because, again, the only frame of reference that I had in my mind was the experiences that I had up till that point and the information that I had. I knew that anything was possible on an intellectual level, and I had started to experience the idea that I could push my own success much further than I was originally experiencing, but I just had no idea how far or how big of a risk was it actually okay to take. I had 4 children. They were small at the time. I had I had all the expenses of a family, all the responsibility of that, and to kind of just throw the dice and do something completely different, it was weighing on me very heavy. Was this something that was incredibly irresponsible for me to actually do? Now, there was another problem. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had this bizarre experience And it seems to happen, although it hasn't happened for a long time, but in those days, it seemed to happen, this experience would happen whenever I would get really, really stuck with the same problem for a long period of time and couldn't seem to get out of this situation. I started waking up at 2:20 in the morning every night with a voice in my head that said, if you want to live your dream, you have to leave. And it was maddening, this voice. I would get up, I would think about it. I would be like, what is the dream? What do I have to leave? Like, I need more guidance. I need more information. Every night, like clockwork, I would wake up and I would see the clock and it would say 2:20, 2:19, 2:20, 2:21. And there was that loud, as you can imagine, in my mind, if you want to live your dream, you have to leave. I would get up and start reading books. I wasn't getting much help there. Like, there was no other signs that were like pointing me in this direction. So I went with this for a period of time, and actually the period of time was quite long. It was about 6 months. And I was really, really stuck. It was not changing. So I decided that I was going to ask somebody, and I asked my mentor at the time. And this was a very interesting situation in and of itself, because I was really trying to make this decision without somebody else's external guidance. I really wanted to make sure that nobody was putting an idea in my mind, that it was what I wanted, that I could discover it, that I could make that choice and go out and actually do whatever it was that I was supposed to be doing with my life. But then I got to the point where I got stuck and I was like, okay, I give up, right? And I called my mentor and we had this meeting in New Orleans. And we were in New Orleans and he was speaking that day. And I met him back, either backstage or in the green room. And I had this conversation and he said, what's going on with you? And I said, Bob, it's the craziest thing. Every morning I'm waking up at 2:20 in the morning with this voice in my head that says, if you want to live your dream, you have to leave. And he paused for just a second, like he traditionally does. He looked down and then he looked me right in the eye and he said, just quit. My instinct, like bang, right? My reaction immediately was, I cannot quit my job. I've got a family, I've got responsibilities, I've got bills. Now I want you to think about this. I asked the question way before I went to go see him with a conversation, what is it that I have to leave? What do I have to quit? And when he said, just quit, I immediately went to my job. I already knew the answer, but I was uncertain. So I didn't want to grab onto that, probably out of fear. Like, I've seen many people struggle with decisions like this. Still didn't know what I was going to do though. So he began to mentor me through this. And he said to me, what you have to realize is that you'll always get what you need when you need it. He said, and you're not really, he said, you intellectually understand how spirit works, but you're not really following it all the way. He said, and in order to get the full result, you have to be all in with this idea. So I'm intently listening, like, what does all in means? I said, but I don't know what I'm going to do. He said, you don't need to know until you make the decision to quit. And I was just like, how can I do that? It seemed like the most irresponsible thing that I could ever possibly do, to just walk away from a thriving career and with the idea that I can't go back, right? Like, if I leave, they're not letting me come back, okay? And not knowing what I'm going to do. Right? I wasn't like I had millions of dollars in the bank where I could just, screw around for a couple of years and not have to worry about it. I had considerable debt because I was really teaching myself throughout these years. So it was a lot of going to seminars and traveling, and I was spending a lot of extra money that I really didn't have to spend on my own education, trying to actually better myself. But what he was trying to explain to me was that the choice that I was attempting to make, I was making it from a limited perspective of my own consciousness, of my own thoughts, and I was not stepping into how spiritual laws really work, which they require faith. There's no question about it. Our life can be guided, and it can be guided in the most miraculous way, but we have to put some faith into the decisions that we're making and step forward. So it brought me back to this amazing teaching that I'm going to give you in a condensed version, which is totally fine. I think it's plenty enough for you to kind of understand the idea of choice that I'm trying to communicate within this podcast. But the idea was this, because he said something to me that just really spun my mind. He said, "You'll always get what you need when you need it." Now, I had known him for several years at this time, and this was the first time I didn't know if I actually believed him or not. Because immediately my mind went to all the different things that went wrong in my life where I didn't get what I thought that I needed. So what I did was I went home and I literally began to look back. I started flipping the pages of my life back and really writing down all these different situations, because I was like, this can't be true. That just can't be true. And what I found out was that it was. And the difference was this: we don't necessarily always get what we want, but we always get what we need. Now, for what? In order to move forward, we always get what we need to move forward. And sometimes that's actually looks like we're going backward. So when I went bankrupt, when I had a car repossessed when I was younger, when I was really irresponsible with money, there were things that happened that had the appearance of setting me backward. But when you look at it from the other side, what it did was it moved me forward, because it got me to check my behavior, it got me to check my habits. It got me to learn different things out of the pain and discomfort of having those experiences, which then propelled me forward much faster than I ever would before. But again, the idea was that he said you always get what you needed when you need it. So it brought me back to this law, which is the law of polarity, which I have made very obvious that it is my favorite law. And the reason that it's my favorite law is because I think it's probably one of the most liberating laws that there is. And here's the reason. Most people have a cap on their potential, or a cap on what's possible in life. The excuses that I've heard over the years that are really rooted in deep belief systems is that people don't have the money, they don't have the time, they don't know the people that they need to know. There's always a limit in something in their mind that is preventing them from moving forward and doing what it is that they want to do in life. And this law breaks that thinking. It completely breaks it. And it allows you to retrain your consciousness to think beyond your current circumstances, so that you can literally create whatever you want and begin to find whatever resource that you need to be able to get there. So here's basically how the law works. What I have written up here is a visual of the law of polarity. The law of polarity states that everything in the universe has an opposite, and it's equal in opposite. In order for something to have an opposite, it has to be connected. Okay? It has to be connected. Now, everything is created completely and as a whole, W-H-O-L-E, okay? So it's not where we have this visual representation of I don't have something, or I only have one part of something. Whatever it is that you have, the other part of it, the other possibility of it, has to exist at the same time and in the same place. Now, I want you to think about the power and the potential in what I'm telling you. You may not believe it right now. You may not have experienced it right now, but if you start to conceptualize how this works and allow yourself to experience it, it probably will be the law that will literally change the way that you operate in your life. If I don't have something, let's use money, right? But you can use this with everything. You use it with the idea of good and bad. You can use it with the idea of right and wrong. You could use it with people, with problems, with places, anything that you want, this law applies. But today we're going to use it with money. So the idea is that on this side, the extreme is poverty. And on this extreme is wealth. Now, what we're dealing with here is not poverty and wealth. We're dealing with whatever the idea of money is, because the paper and the coins that we trade back and forth for goods and services, that's not money. It's a representation of money. Money is actually an idea. It's an idea that has rules with it. We put a value on it, and then we say that value is worth this to pay for this or that, and we trade for those goods and services. But it comes from an overall idea of abundance. So abundance is what we're dealing with as far as the whole concept of this idea. When we go out to either side of it, then we have the extremes of that concept, which is poverty on one side, wealth on the other. Now, I don't know where you are, but there was a time where I was over here on this side. I was not abject poverty over here, but there's many people in the world that are. I was somewhere between abject poverty and having a little bit of money, right? I think in the middle would be you have just enough. People live their lives with just enough. Usually the people that live their lives with just enough have a tremendous amount of stress in their life because they're always trying to make sure that there's just enough. And we go through so many different contortions in order to try to make that work. If we spend too much, we don't have just enough, and then we're in stress. If we get a little extra, we're either worried we're going to lose it or we manifest something that takes it away from us, and it goes back and forth constantly. So the idea is basically this: wherever I am, wherever you are, ask yourself where you are as far as this line goes. You have to understand that the opposite side exists at the same time. So if I don't have something over here, the opposite side of it says that I do. That's the law. Now, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to look in my bank, I'm going to look in my wallet, I'm going to look at my bills, and I'm going to go, that's the craziest thing that I've ever heard. I absolutely do not have it. What do you want me to tell the bill collectors? That it's here, that it's like what, I don't have the paper money to actually do something with this. My representation, my reality says that it's not actually here. And what Bob was trying to explain to me, my mentor, he said, the idea is that everything that you need is already here, and whether you bring it in your life or not is dependent upon your consciousness. If you choose not to leave where you are, there's no reason for you to move to the other side of this law and experience what's already there, which is the thing that you should be doing with your life. I like to use this with money because it's the one thing that we can all kind of agree upon. We've all had the experience of some money, not enough money, too much money. We've all had that experience in our life to some degree. But it also works with your potential. It works with your future. It works with your purpose. Whatever you're experiencing now, the opposite side of it already exists in your life. And if we understand this, I think we come from a very different place intellectually as far as what we're going to choose. Because if I really understand it intellectually, now I may not have experienced it yet, I can put my faith in the idea that if I make a decision to move away from this line, whether it's money or it's my purpose, the other side will eventually come into view for me and allow me to accept that as an opportunity or an option in my life. But the idea is that we have to make a decision, because until we make a decision, all we're really focused on is what we don't have. We stay incredibly focused on it. What does that do? It keeps burning an image into our mind of what it is that we don't have in life. And we create a story around that, or we keep repeating a story around it, and we continue not to have it in our life. And that's what he said to me: when you decide to leave, the thing that you desire will show up. I don't know what I desire. You don't need to know what you desire until you make a decision that you're going to leave. Because my modus operandi was, what is it that's going to keep me safe? What keeps me responsible? What keeps me keeping the family unit together as far as my responsibility of that unit was concerned? It was focusing on the wrong side of the line. So I had to really go home and think about all the times that I didn't think something was there, but something was there. And it came in according to my consciousness. So in other words, That's why it's not always what you want, but what you need. Whatever your level of consciousness is what will actually come in to fill that gap of what you don't have. There's billions of people that day to day it's hand to mouth, hand to mouth, hand to mouth, right? And some people always get what it is that they need. Now, if a person is in the consciousness of they don't get what they need, and it's death and starvation and suffering, then they will fall into that category also. But see, that's coming from ignorance, which I talked about on the first episode here. We want to go to knowledge, and knowledge is that it's here. So if I will give up the idea that I don't have something, I can move over to the other side of this line, and I can literally begin to look for the opportunity that will bring in whatever I need. And it's always there. That part I can absolutely assure you. It is always there. But it's not there until we give up having this be the only reality that we're actually experiencing. So the idea is that we have this choice. If we will let go of what it is that we're experiencing that we don't want in life, we open the door to allow what we do want to present itself to us. And this was the experience that I was having when I was told that I was an unconscious competent. I was winning, and I didn't know how I was winning. I went from being a high school dropout that had basically no skills other than driving a truck or a forklift, and I was having all these other experiences that were allowing me to rapidly move up the ladder in a company, to make more money, to know more people that had opportunity to offer me. And it was like night and day. It was like one day it wasn't there, the next day it was there, and the only thing that changed was my attitude about who I was and what I was doing. When I changed my attitude, I began to focus on what I wanted and what I wanted to see versus what I didn't. And to my amazement, it was there the whole time, but I couldn't see it because I was too focused on what I didn't want. So this law does something pretty interesting. It gives you the intellectual knowledge to say that whatever you do want is already here. If you would stop focusing on what you don't have, and you'll start writing down and visualizing what you do want, you will eventually see the opportunity to move to the other side. Now, with most people that I work with personally, they experience this really quick. But there's a couple of parameters around it. Number one, they really, really want to experience something on the other side. So they're willing to drop this to the very best of their ability. The people that make this take a long time, this process, are the ones that they've got 1 foot in, they've got 1 foot out. They got 1 foot in, they got 1 foot out. Today they're going to do it, tomorrow they're not going to do it. Next day they're going to do it, next day after that they're not going to do it. They're not literally making a commitment to step into the possibility for whatever it is that they do want and actually bring that into the existence of their life. It's an amazing thing when we do this. That's why J. Martin Coe wrote a great book called Your Power to Choose, I think it was called, or The Power of Choice, something like that. And he said it's your greatest power. It is your greatest power. It really is our greatest power, because not only does it have the quality to create the life that we want, it has the ability to allow you to see the opportunity to create the life that you want. And then it's a matter of saying yes to that opportunity. Watch this video 100 times. Burn this into your mind and begin to apply it in your life. I'm not asking you to trust it right off the bat. Test it. Start testing it with small things, and eventually you'll do it with big things. And you will watch in amazement as your life changes right before your eyes. We'll see you on the next podcast. Hey everyone, I just got done with the Law of Polarity and the ability to choose and how you can change your life. If you know somebody that's really struggling in their life that wants to change it, make sure you recommend this podcast to them so that they can check it out. Like us, subscribe, and we'll see you on the next podcast.